Welcome to the Sleep Dives channel. We're diving back into Don Alamedo's masterpiece, Thinking in Systems, to really get a handle on the invisible forces that shape, well, everything. We're going to uncover the hidden rules of self-organization, the surprising power of limits, and why delays can secretly be running the entire show.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the absolute genius of how complex things build themselves. Then, we'll get into why our own minds have such a hard time seeing it clearly. After that, it's time to face the hard rules that no system can escape. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with how you can use this way of thinking day in and day out.
So first up, the genius of self-creation. I mean, think about it. How can something as mind-bogglingly complex as a living cell, or even the global economy, just build itself, often with nobody in charge? That's the amazing puzzle we're starting with.
And the answer, the core idea here, is self-organization. It's this incredible, almost magical ability of a system to build its own structure, to learn and to get more and more complex, all from just a handful of simple rules. You know, this process is really the engine that drives everything from evolution to human creativity.
Okay, check this out. The Coach Snowflake. It starts with one basic shape, a triangle, and one dead simple rule. Add a smaller triangle to the middle of each side. And when you just repeat that simple instruction over and over, you get this stunningly complex shape, a fractal that has an infinite perimeter but somehow fits in a finite space. Wild, right?
And this is so much more than a cool math trick. It's a fundamental principle of the universe. Life itself, from the tiniest virus to a giant redwood tree, emerges from the simple organizing rules written in its DNA. And in the very same way, entire human cultures can spring up from just a few foundational ideas or beliefs.
Now, as systems get more complex, they almost always create hierarchies. And this simple fable shows us exactly why. You've got Hora, the smartwatch maker. He built his watches from stable, smaller modules, subassemblies. So if he got interrupted, it was just a minor setback. But then there's Tempest. He tried to put all 1,000 parts together at once. Any little interruption was a total catastrophe. This story reveals something absolutely crucial. Complex systems can only evolve if they're built from stable, smaller parts. It's why nature's built on hierarchies. You know, cells make organs, organs make organisms.
But, and this is a big but, hierarchy has a built-in danger: sub-optimization. This is what happens when one part of the system gets so good at achieving its own goals that it actually hurts the whole system. Imagine a sales team that promises impossible delivery dates just to boost its numbers. Sure, they look great, but they end up destroying the company's reputation. It's like a cancer inside the system.
So we've seen how systems build up all this amazing complexity. But here's the kicker. That very same complexity is exactly why our brains get fooled so easily. We just aren't naturally wired to understand a world that is fundamentally nonlinear and doesn't have any real, hard boundaries.
The author James Gleick just put it perfectly. We expect the rules of the game to stay the same, right? But in most real systems, the things we do can actually change the rules while we're playing. And that, right there, is the essence of nonlinearity.
You know, our minds just love linear relationships. Put in 2 hours of work, get 2 hours of results. Simple. But the world? It's mostly nonlinear. Putting more fertilizer on your crops might give you more veggies, but only up to a point. After that, you might get no more, or you might even kill the whole lot. Nonlinear systems are just full of these crazy tipping points and total surprises.
The spruce budworm saga is the perfect case study. For years and years, everything's in balance. Predators keep the budworms under control. But then a nonlinear shift happens. The forest matures, creating this massive all-you-can-eat buffet. And suddenly, the budworm's reproduction just goes into overdrive. The predators can't keep up, and the whole system flips. A reinforcing loop takes over. The budworm population just explodes, and the forest gets wiped out. And then, just as suddenly, starvation kicks in and the population crashes. It all hinges on that one nonlinear tipping point.
The other big way our brains get fooled is by drawing these imaginary lines, these fake boundaries. As the ecologist Garrett Hardin pointed out, whenever we say side effects, what we're really saying is effects I didn't bother to think about because I drew my circle too small.
You see it all the time in system diagrams. We draw these little clouds to show where things come from and where they go. But in the real world, there are no clouds. Those cars don't come from a cloud. They come from mines and factories. And they don't go to a cloud. They go to scrapyards and landfills. Those clouds are hiding massive, interconnected systems that we ignore at our own peril.
So it forces you to ask, where is away? You know, when you throw something away, where does it actually go? There are no real sources or sinks in the world, just interconnected piles and flows that we've mentally chopped up. And forgetting this is how we get completely blindsided by problems like overflowing landfills. We just ignored a connection that was there the whole time.
Okay, so once we stop drawing those artificial boundaries, we run smack into the hard rules of reality. Every single system, I don't care how complex it is, has to obey real-world limits and delays. There's no escaping it.
This is captured perfectly by something called Liebig's Law of the Minimum. A plant's growth isn't held back by the nutrients it has plenty of, it's held back by the one that's most scarce. It doesn't matter if you have tons of water and sunlight if you have zero potassium. The most important thing is always the thing you're about to run out of.
And what's so fascinating is that these limits are always moving. A growing company might first be limited by how much it can produce, so they solve that. But now, they find they're limited by the skill of their new staff. They fix that, and whoops, now management itself is the bottleneck. The very act of growing causes the limiting factor to shift. The real trick is to see the next limit coming.
And this all leads to an unavoidable truth, really. Limits are always going to exist. The only choice we have is whether we impose those limits on our own terms, consciously, or if we wait for the system to impose them on us, which often looks a lot like collapse.
And finally, we have to learn to respect delays. Václav Havel put it so beautifully, you can't fool a plant by pulling on it to make it grow faster. Every stock in a system, whether it's a company's inventory or the water behind a dam, represents a delay. Change simply takes time, and our impatience often leads us to jump in and meddle in ways that just make things worse.
All right, so how do we take all these big, heady ideas and actually use them? Let's bring this right down to the ground level and see how you can start thinking in systems in your own life.
So here are the mental habits you can start to build. Get curious. Look for the simple rules that are creating complex stuff around you. When something goes wrong, ask yourself, is one part of my team or my project or even my life succeeding at the expense of the whole thing? Respect nonlinearity. Remember that more isn't always better. Constantly question the boundaries of a problem by asking, what am I not seeing here? Before you jump in to fix something, find the real bottleneck. And last but not least, be patient. Build delays into your plans.
Honestly, learning to see this invisible architecture is a kind of superpower. Once you understand the role of hierarchies, nonlinearities, boundaries, limits, and delays, the world stops being this series of random, shocking events and starts becoming an understandable, interconnected system you can actually navigate.
So I'll leave you with a final thought to chew on. Think about the biggest challenge you're wrestling with at the moment. Is it possible that its behavior is being driven by an invisible boundary you've drawn, a surprising nonlinearity you've overlooked, or an unacknowledged delay that's secretly running the whole show?